Hello, hello, rockers. Here we are again with a new session on Treasure Island, and this is another podcast. This time we listen to a woman. Again, we're talking about the ultimate hero's journey related to Treasure Island, yes, related to Jim Hawkins, as we know. Are you ready to listen? Prepare your ears. Let's go.
Ahoy, adventurers! Welcome back to Rock Your English. Today, we're setting sail for one of the most famous adventures in English literature, Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. But this isn't simply a story about pirates, buried treasure, maps, and sea battles. Look closely at this image, and you'll discover something much deeper. It's the story of a boy becoming a man. It's a story about courage, mentors, danger, identity, and moral choices. In other words, it's the ultimate hero's journey. So grab your compass, unfold your treasure map, and let's set sail. Segment 1: The Departure from Innocence. Our journey begins with Jim Hawkins. In the image, we can see Jim leaving his home behind. At the beginning of the story, Jim is still a young boy living a relatively protected life. But everything changes when pirates enter his world. The arrival of Billy Bones, the discovery of the treasure map, and the threat of Long John Silver and his crew push Jim out of his safe environment. And that is one of the most important stages of the hero's journey: the departure from innocence. Jim is forced to leave the world he knows and enter a dangerous, unpredictable world. The image captures this beautifully. We can almost see Jim running away from childhood and running toward adulthood. The search for a father figure. But Jim doesn't make this journey completely alone. One of the fascinating ideas in Treasure Island is Jim's search for guidance and authority. The image highlights Long John Silver as an important father figure and mentor. Now, Silver is certainly not a traditional mentor. He's a pirate. He's manipulative, he's dangerous, and he's morally ambiguous. But he's also intelligent, charismatic, and extremely capable. Jim watches Silver carefully. He learns from him. He discovers how leadership works, how people can manipulate others, and how survival sometimes requires intelligence rather than brute strength. And that's what makes Silver so fascinating. He is not simply a villain. He's much more complicated. Segment 3: The Pirate Blueprint. Now, let's look at the enormous treasure map in the center of the image. The map represents much more than buried gold. It represents adventure itself. Stevenson helped establish many of the images we now associate with pirates: treasure maps, X marking the spot, parrots, pirate ships, buried treasure, and of course, pirates with colorful personalities. In fact, the pirate adventure story owes an enormous debt to Stevenson. He created a blueprint that would influence generations of books, films, television shows, and children's adventures. So when we imagine a pirate saying, X marks the spot, we are entering a world that Stevenson helped popularize. Segment 4: The Charismatic Anti-Hero Host. And then, there he is, Long John Silver. Look at him in the center of the image. Confident, powerful, smiling, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. Silver is one of literature's great anti-heroes. He isn't purely good, but he isn't simply evil either. He's clever, he's charming, he's persuasive, and he knows exactly how to manipulate people. That's why Jim and the reader can never completely predict him. One moment, Silver appears to be a friend. The next moment, he becomes a threat. And this moral ambiguity makes him one of the most memorable characters in the novel. Perhaps that's one of the reasons we remember Silver, even more than some of the supposedly good characters. Segment 5: Achieving Moral Stature. Now look toward the right-hand side of the image. We see action everywhere. Cannons firing, pirates fighting, ships battling, Jim facing danger. This is the moment when adventure becomes a test of character. Jim doesn't simply have to survive physically. He has to make moral choices. He must decide whom to trust. He must decide when to be brave. He must decide whether to follow adults or trust his own judgment. And this is where Jim truly grows. He begins the story as a boy who depends on adults, but by facing danger, making mistakes, and taking responsibility, he becomes increasingly independent. That's what the image means when it talks about achieving moral stature. Jim doesn't become a hero because he is the strongest person. He becomes a hero because he learns to think, choose, and act. A century of adaptations. And here's another fascinating part of our treasure map. Look at the bottom right corner. We can see a whole collection of characters and adaptations, from classic Disney versions to Muppets to modern science fiction interpretations. The story of Treasure Island has continued to evolve. Why? Because the basic ingredients are almost irresistible: a mysterious map, a dangerous voyage, a group of pirates, a hidden treasure, a young hero, a charismatic villain, and the ultimate question: who can you trust? That's why Stevenson's story has survived for more than a century. The setting can change, the characters can change, the technology can change, but the hero's journey remains universal. Segment 7: From Boy to Man. And finally, let's return to Jim. At the beginning, Jim is a boy. At the end, Jim has experienced violence, betrayal, fear, adventure, and responsibility. He has encountered people who are brave, people who are greedy, people who are loyal, and people who are impossible to trust. And through these experiences, he has changed. That's the real treasure of Treasure Island. It's not necessarily the gold, it's the transformation of Jim Hawkins. He leaves home as an innocent boy and returns with the experience of someone who has faced the adult world. His greatest treasure is not what he finds underground, it's who he becomes. Out of waves, pirate music fading in. So if we look at this image one more time, we can see the entire journey. Home and innocence, the call to adventure, pirates and danger, mentors and role models, tests and moral choices, the search for treasure, and finally, transformation. Treasure Island may be a pirate story, but underneath the adventure is a much older story, the story of growing up. And perhaps that's why, more than 100 years later, we're still following Jim Hawkins across the sea. Because somewhere inside all of us, there's still a little bit of the boy or girl standing at the edge of the map, wondering, what happens if I take the next step? This is Rock Your English. Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, every great journey begins with a single step. Rock Your English at English Zone Rocks.
Okay. Well,
Podcast script.
how was it? I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have here. And as it says there, the adventure continues. What will your next step be? We need to rock our English. We need to speak about lots of ideas, yes, lots of things, how to describe all this voyage, this kid, the characters' arcs, okay? So these are more ideas to help you understand the story. And it says in the podcast, it has been retold for more than 100 years. So I'm so happy that you're here learning about it and talking about it as well. Okay? Well, keep on rocking it. Yes, stay curious, stay hungry, stay tuned, and there we are. Okay? If you have a question, don't hesitate to ask. And listen to the podcast because it's more complete. All righty. Lots of kisses. Ahoy! Cheers. Bye bye.